What's up, spooky people? My name is Griddy and welcome to the Spooky Corner. And today we're going to be talking about some creepy Irish urban legends. Ireland is no stranger to scary stuff. As a matter of fact, if you didn't know, it's actually the birthplace of Halloween. That's right, if it wasn't for Ireland, we may not have trick-or-treating costumes and just Halloween in general. So to Ireland, thank you very much. We love you for that. But that isn't the only scary thing to come out of Ireland, because they also have a bunch of creepy urban legends, scary stories, and myths that I'm gonna get into right now. So without further ado, sit back, relax, pop open a Guinness if you want, grab a piece of soda bread, and let's dig in to these creepy Irish urban legends. Now let's start off with the Banshee. A Banshee is a female spirit or a fairy known for her loud, terrifying screams. But if you hear one of these screams, they should not be taken lightly, because they are actually a warning, a sign that death is near. Usually for one of your family members, but sometimes maybe even you. They say that she can either be a young woman or an old lady with white hair, an old ugly hag. Now whichever one it is, they are both said to either be wearing a white cloak or a gray cloak. Now if it's a young lady, they say that she can either be the spirit of a woman whose children died and then she soon died after because of the grief, kind of like La Llorona. If you haven't seen that, check out my video on Mexican urban legends. Or she can be the spirit of a young woman who was brutally murdered. Now obviously, depending on where you go and who you talk to in Ireland, you're going to get different variations of the story about the Banshee. You know, what she is, what she does. But my favorite has to be one from this part in Ireland that I don't remember right now. But this place called their Banshee a bow. And this bow was known to drop her comb around town, just leave it on the street, waiting for some poor sucker to come pick it up. But nobody picked it up, because they knew that if they picked up the comb, they were in for some deep shite. But of course, like in all these stories, there's always one idiot, one fool willing to test their luck, and that's exactly what happens next. Because one night this local drunk was coming out of the bar. He was plastered, he thought he had big stones, and he saw the bow's comb on the floor and decided that he was brave enough to pick it up. And as soon as he did, the bow came out of nowhere, speared his ass, threw him up against the store window 2 stories in the air, and stuck him on the window for 2 days. And they say the fire department came to try and rescue this man from being stuck on the window, but no such luck. They couldn't get him down. And that, my friends, was a message, was a warning to not mess with the bow, ho. Now that's pretty much as dangerous as I've heard the Banshee get. I've never really heard about her killing anybody. She's pretty much known just for her terrifying, blood-curdling cries. And that's still really, really scary. That's scary enough. Because think about it. You could just be hanging out. You could be up late at night. And then that's when you hear the scream off in the distance. And when you hear that, that's when it's time to take out your phone and text everybody you love. Because one of them's about to die. Now if you happen to find yourself in Ireland for a funeral one day, just make sure you remember not to hang around the cemetery for too long afterwards, because that is when you might run into the Demon Bride. They say that she roams the cemetery looking for guys who are hanging out by themselves, usually after a funeral. And when she finds one, she then walks up to them looking amazing, wearing a wedding dress for some reason, and then she starts to sweet talk the guys. She starts to seduce them, until eventually, a little bit down the line in their conversation, they end up kissing. Now you're probably asking yourself, what's wrong with that? I mean, she's coming up to the guy, lightening the mood after a funeral. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right? Wrong. There is something wrong with that. I mean, her name is the Demon Bride, man, so obviously you know something bad is gonna happen. And that's exactly what happens, because after these guys get a nice kiss, they go home on cloud 9. They're thinking,
oh my god, wow, I got a kiss in the cemetery. It's never happened to me before. I must be so cool.
Well, the party's over very soon, because soon after, they start to go insane and they start to become very, very sick. And to the point where they just wither away and die. And then they probably end up in the same cemetery that they gave the demon bride a kiss in. Then their friends are going to go to their funeral. One of them is going to be hanging around. He is going to get a kiss. And then this thing is just going to be going around like a damn STD. Well, I guess it's like my mom says.
A moment of pleasure can bring you a lifetime of pain.
There were some times where I didn't heed that warning, but I was alright. Anyway, so just remember, if you're ever in the cemetery after a funeral and this hussy in a wedding dress tries to come up, sweet talk you and give you a kiss, just tell her to kiss your arse. Alright, moving on, now let's get into a real good one. This is the Dullahan. Now in America, we got the Headless Horseman, but in Ireland, they got the Dullahan, who in my opinion is way more badass, way creepier, and way more sinister. Now they say the Dullahan hops atop his black horse when it's deep and dark in the night. And that's when he rides through the mortal world looking to take a life. So he's kind of like the Grim Reaper. You see why he's better than the Headless Horseman already? Now, sometimes they say he rides in a carriage as well, and this one's even creepier because they say parts of the carriage is made of human skin and bones. But whether he's horseback or whether he's on a carriage, the word is that the Dullahan rides through the night with his head in his hand. Now, this is not just a regular head, this is where things get even scarier, because his head is supposedly rotting and it's supposed to be the consistency of old moldy cheese. And to top things off, to put the cherry on it, it has a hideous smile that can be seen as he rides through the night. Now get this, even if you're not his primary target when he goes out for his little midnight ride, you are still in danger, because if you are in the vicinity, if you are around him, or if you happen to catch a glimpse of him while he's doing his thing, he don't like that. So that will cause him to throw some blood in your face or crack the whip that will then blind you. Oh yeah, and did I mention that the whip that he's holding is made of a horse spine? So if you're walking around Ireland at night, you may want to carry some gold with you, because that is the only thing that they say he is afraid of. And there's this old story about this man who was walking home alone at night when he heard the Dullahan's carriage behind him. And he knew that there was no way that he was going to outrun him, but thinking quickly, he dug in his pocket and grabbed a gold coin. Then he threw it in the Dullahan's path, which then made him and his horses turn right around, go home, and the man lived to see another night. Now after hearing this, if I was walking around Ireland at night, I'd be walking around like this. Just draped up in gold. I'd be shining my gold teeth. I'd be just all gold everything. Now tell me, what's worse than having your baby stolen from you? Probably having it stolen and then exchanged with a changeling, which is our next topic. A changeling is the baby of a fairy who is put in the place of a human baby after the fairies kidnap the human baby away from their mother and father. I don't know how many times I've mentioned fairies in this video so far, but basically when it comes to urban legends and myths and folklore, fairies run the show. They are everywhere. Like leprechauns are considered fairies. I even saw the Dullahan is considered a fairy. So I don't want you to think I'm talking about like Cosmo and Wanda fairies. I don't want you to think I'm talking about like Tinkerbell fairies. No, in Ireland the fairies are usually evil. Evil. Not the fairies that you want to be hanging around. Which I guess would explain why they would kidnap babies and leave theirs with the humans. Now there's a couple of different reasons why they would kidnap a human baby and just dump their baby in a human household. One of them is just that they like human babies better. They think they're prettier and more well behaved, and we'll get to that in a second. Another is that the changeling baby needs human milk to grow, and I find that total and utter bullshit, because it's a fairy. Like, it's magic. Why would it need human milk to grow? What is that? There's a whole bunch of reasons why, but those are just a few. Now, I already explained to you that fairies are usually evil, and this is exactly why you do not want a changeling baby. There's a bunch of different ways to know if your baby's a changeling, so just in case you need to figure it out, here's how you know. Now, a lot of this stuff really probably doesn't show itself till the kid gets older, and you're probably already stuck with it. One is that the kid will be super smart. It'll have a lot of knowledge. It'll be really intelligent. But that's not too bad, I guess. The second is that the changeling is basically an asshole. It's rude, it's mean, there's no redeeming qualities, it has a bad attitude, and it does nothing but just wreak havoc upon the household.
Don't. Goddamn big. Jaden, stop. Stop hitting me.
The third is that it'll eat you out of house and home. It'll eat everything in the fridge. The changeling has an enormous appetite that will never be satisfied. I can definitely relate to that. The fourth is that it'll have unusual birthmarks, defects, or it'll just grow up to be really ugly and maybe even be just an ugly baby. And the fifth is that it'll be antisocial. It don't want to talk to nobody, it don't want to be around nobody, it don't want nothing to do with humans except when it's being rude or maybe when it wants some food. Now you're probably wondering, if you find out that your baby or your child is a changeling, how do you get your child back? How do you get your human back? Well, there's two ways that happens. This one is really weird. I didn't expect this when I looked it up, but you know what? When you dig into these urban legends in other countries, you find some weird stuff. See my Urban Legends of Korea video. There's a lot of that in there. Now this way is basically you have to cook something in eggshells. Like you have to boil beer, make some soup, or you have to cook in an eggshell. And basically they say that will then make the changeling baby just freaked out and it'll be weirded out. And they say like because it's lived for so long that it's never seen anything like that it wants nothing to do with you, that basically you're really weird, and that it's gonna give up its own rap and go back to fairy world and you'll get your baby back. Now that's the easy way. The other way, well, I gotta throw in a little trigger warning for this one, because this one calls for you to torture the baby. Or the one I saw that was interesting is you have to throw it in a fire, and then once you throw it in the fire, it leaps up, yells, heads back to fairy world, and then you get your baby back. Now this is sadistic, you know, this is going way beyond just getting the old belt out, but you know, if it's a changeling baby, if it's an evil fairy, then you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. You just better hope that you don't mistake your baby for a changeling, because then there's gonna be some real big problems. What I find scary about this is not the whole having your baby stolen away, but what I find scary personally is how much I can relate to the list of changeling baby symptoms. Like, I eat everything, I'm really smart, I got a lot of knowledge, and I am pretty antisocial. Only thing is that I am definitely not ugly. Okay, to wrap this up, we have the Dada-Doo, aka the red bloodsucker. So you know where we're going with this one, baby. We got a vampire. I love him. This is an old story from Ireland about a young girl who was ripped away from the love of her life to then sadly die, but then rise again from the grave as a blood-sucking vampire. A long time ago, in the county of Waterford, there was a young, beautiful girl who was known all over Ireland for her fair skin and red lips. Now, all the guys in Ireland, near and far, wanted to travel to marry this girl, to get with her, but she didn't want none of them. She wanted this peasant boy from where she lived, and her and this peasant boy would often meet up and talk about their future and how amazing things were gonna be and all the great things they were gonna do together. But sadly, none of them would come to fruition because her father had other plans. This girl's dad wanted to sell her into marriage, basically, to a rich man so he can reap the reward, so he can get all the money. And that's exactly what he did. He met this old rich man and he gave his daughter away to marry him. But what's even sadder is that this old man took her away to live with him, and then he forced her to live all alone in a room in his castle, all by herself, where nobody can see her except him. Probably while her bitch ass dad is hanging out in the Bahamas, you know, living life with all the money he got. And they also say that this old, rich, horrible, disgusting, pervy man would come into the girl's chamber often and drink her blood. So if he wasn't gross enough, he's even grosser. So over time, the girl became more and more upset, more and more depressed about the life that she could have had and the life that she has now. So eventually, she wanted to commit suicide, and that she did. She committed suicide by slowly starving herself. Every time she got a meal, she didn't eat it. And slowly but surely, just like the guys who kissed the demon bride, she withered away and died. And do you think the old man gave a damn? Nope, he was on to the next one, and they had to bury the girl. Sadly, they buried the girl, and they had this tradition where they would put stones on the grave so that the dead person doesn't come up out of the grave and rise from the dead. But for whatever reason, they failed to do so when they buried the girl. And this is the one time that they probably should have, because she rose from the dead like the Undertaker, but not as a young, beautiful, sad girl, but as a blood-sucking, vicious vampire. And now she wants revenge. She wants revenge on her dad and that old skeevy perv. And so she got it. She went to her dad's house, probably a nice new big house now with all that money. She knocked on the door. He probably opened the door and she was like, "Top of the morning, bitch." And then she savagely ripped him apart, killed him, and drank his blood probably. And then she went over to the skeevy old perv and killed him as well. And now they say that this girl haunts the night of Ireland, calling out to men so that she can drink their blood. She doesn't want to drink any girl's blood? She probably does. They probably just say men, but she probably wants to drink girl blood too. Now I got two questions about this story. One, how did she become a vampire? Like, did I miss something? Was the old man a vampire and did he feed her some of his blood and then she died and then she rose up as a vampire? I don't know, but still, I don't think it really matters. It's still cool anyway. And my second question is, why after she got her revenge, after she got her revenge, why didn't she go and be with the peasant boy that she was so enamored with, you know? Like, after all that, you should just go find him and be with him. I mean, maybe turn him into a vampire. Maybe she did it and we don't know. So those are all the creepy Irish urban legends. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, let me know 6 feet deep below in the comment section which one of these is your favorite and why. Mine has to be, it's honestly a tie between the Doo and the Dullahan. I love them both. I love them both. The Dullahan is really cool, but I gotta give it up to the Doo because it's a vampire, man. Those are my favorites. I gotta give it to the Doo for that one. Now that is all the time I got today for the Spooky Corner, so make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, or I'll call the Dullahan to come get your arse. And of course, come back next time for some more spooky stuff.